Hello and welcome to Introverted Indies. My name is Lydia Baker and I'm here with Lucy McLaren, who's also my co-host. But she's got a new book that's being released in October, so we're here to have a chat about that. So if you've not heard of Introverted Indies before, we are a platform to support indie authors to have a chance to talk about their work and to connect readers with authors. So Lucy, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you, Lydia. Yeah, so I'm usually on that side of the camera, so it's weird to be interviewed. But yeah, so I'm Lucy McLaren. I'm a dark fantasy author, co-host of Introverted Indies. And yeah, I mean, the main reason I'm here to be interviewed today is to discuss Echoes of the EtherStone, which is a gothic fantasy book coming out in October from our Talon Press. And yeah, when I'm not writing, I am a mum, and when I'm not doing that, which, as Lydia knows, takes up a lot of time, not doing that, reading, gaming, and I'm also a counsellor as well.
Excellent. So, would you tell us a little bit more about your new up and coming book? Because I mean, I've read it and it's brilliant.
hmm
Everyone should buy it. But tell us a bit more about it. Hook us in.
So you can probably tell from the cover that it's like Jack the Ripper inspired. Like that's what's going for with this, the figure with the knife. And because from looking up newspaper articles that were printed at the time of those murders, that's kind of the vibe that the Penny Dreadfuls and stuff were drawing that kind of image. So that's what was going for on the cover. Um, And yeah, so it's very much inspired by those murders. I mean, the reason I started writing this book was because I read The Five by Hayley Rubenhold, which is about the victims of Jack the Ripper. And that kind of made me start thinking about the society that, well, I mean, it's still very present now, but the kind of patriarchal society and the reason why the women that were killed by Jack the Ripper were viewed in a certain way. Um, very, very much kind of victim blaming mentality, even though you learn about all those women and the horrific lives that they led and the trauma that they experienced. Um so yeah, I wanted to write a book that kind of explored had a similar society. It's inspired by Victorian London setting as well, obviously at the same time that the Ripper murders were taking place. um Patriarchal society. Mine kind of has a big religious oppression element to it. But the kind of main crux of the story is these two women, Elle and Beth, coming together. Elle is a commoner, Beth is a noble, but they come together to try and unmask the killer. And in the process, they uncover a lot more. And the aim being to deconstruct that oppressive society, but that kind of whether they succeed or not, I don't know. I'll leave that down to the reader.
Excellent. And I particularly like the fact that you had two women who were the main characters, and it didn't have to be a romance, didn't have to be anything else. They were just good friends, and I think that's something that
hmm
so often is missed out. Everything seems to have a romantic aspect to it, and I really like the fact
Mm,
that it didn't. They were just really good friends. They got along and they got each
yeah.
other in different sides of society. So
hmm
you said the Jack the Ripper stuff inspired you. Was there anything else that sort of inspired you? I mean, Jack the Ripper is a big one. It's a popular
Yeah.
topic, isn't it?
hmm Yeah. I mean, I'm into true crime more generally anyway, so I kind of watch like Bailey Sarian on YouTube, like murder mystery makeup. Have read about serial killers back to childhood, which may sound weird, but I don't know. It's always been kind of I don't think fascination is the right word. In an interest, especially as a counselor as well now, and that psychological kind of element of it, of like, who are these people and why do they enact the most horrific things on other people? I find that interesting because it's just so far removed from you know human empathy, which is what's so important to me as a therapist and to so many people. So the idea of what does a serial killer look like, and in this book it's very specifically around connected to that religious oppression, and why the killer does what he does, because there are chapters interspersed throughout from his perspective, um, talking through the murders and also some kind of thoughts that he has. But yeah, I mean, so true crime being one of them. I'm also very much into like gothic darker stuff at the
Mhm.
moment. I don't know. It feels like the more the world is on fire, the more I'm like reading dark, messed up stories. I don't know. I feel like it's my way of trying to process some stuff.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's kind of the things that come to mind for me are films like Crimson Peak, Mary Riley, which is told from the perspective of the maid of Dr. Jekyll. So I mean that's kind of yeah. Um, and I've read some recently as well that feel like a similar kind of vibe as well, like The Butcher's Daughter, Shape of Darkness. So the gothic feeling is still carrying on now that I've written this book. But yeah, so that I think that's I started getting into that kind of move away from medieval style epic fantasy, which I've written previously, and just into that more Edwardian slash Victorian, like almost like a period from our world, but
Yeah.
set in a fantasy world. Yeah, that it's been interesting. And to be honest, the reason I do that and don't write historical is because I'm too lazy to like fully research and be accurate. So I'm like, I'll take things from our world, but then it's like oh, it doesn't have to be 100% accurate because it's a completely made up world. So yeah, I think that's why I stick with the fantasy rather than going into full historical.
And that's quite nice, isn't it? You don't always want, historically accurate. You want people to just enjoy the story rather than be like fact checking.
Yeah, yeah, I can't be doing with that. So yeah, if anything feels off from actual Victorian London, it's because it's not Victorian London.
And that, no, that's great. Do you find that having the counselling background that helped you write or sort of do the perspective of the killer with some of the psychological aspects?
Mm, yeah, yeah, I mean, I feel like that with all characters, to be honest. The killer in particular, obviously, was it's weird to say that I found that perspective the most enjoyable to write. I don't know why. So take from that what you will. But probably because it's so far removed from myself, like trying to understand what his motivations are. And it's like I said, related to that the religious aspect of it and the God that is controlling him, so to speak. But there's also stuff going on with his mental health, shall we say. But then going on to the characters of Elle and Beth, the two main characters, they also have their own, um, internal struggles. Elle in particular comes from a background of domestic abuse and violence from her father. And so there's trauma there and um, understanding levels of grief from the loss of her mother, which is a historic event in the story, kind of the hardships that she's experienced growing up in poverty, essentially. Um, so yeah, understand those different elements and how they impact on a person growing up. Childhood trauma and abuse, and as addiction is kind of explored as well in the story. Yeah, so I do like to kind of use my knowledge of counselling, my experience of working with people, my understanding of what impacts us as we grow up, because I do believe that we're all products of our upbringing and what we've been through. Yeah, I find it fascinating personally. I kind of like to think about, oh, what's this character's like attachment style, for example, and how does that impact on how they relate to people? Like Elle, for example, finds it hard to trust people because of the environment she's grown up in and kind of the natural wariness that's created within her. Beth starts out a bit kind of naive and narrow-minded, but that changes over the course of the story.
Yeah, no, it's great. I enjoy they're very different characters, and you brought them all together in a really cohesive way, which is great. And I get what you mean with the writing. I know in some of the books I've written, some of the horrible bits, some of the horrible characters are almost the most fun to write because it's so separate from
Mm,
how you would
yeah.
be or how you are as a person and what you consider
Hmm.
normal. It's
Yeah.
quite fun to write something a bit nuts.
It is, isn't
So
it? Yeah. I think because otherwise, all writers always say like there's an element of us in our characters, but when it's stuff like that, like the villain, it's like, well, no, that's
not that.
that's so far removed from who we are. Then yeah, I think it is fun, isn't it, to just completely like separate yourself out and be in a completely different kind of headspace.
Yeah, I enjoy that bit. So, do you have a favourite character in your novel?
Ooh. um I think probably L, because I like the tenacity and like, the fact that she's come from really difficult background. She's trying to protect her younger brother. I understand that kind of sibling relationship as I have three myself. Um, and just her determination to find to like get to the truth, and find who the killer is. I think Beth, like I said, has got that naivety there, a level of ignorance in terms of the impact that the murders have had on the city, on kind of the poorer people that live there. Yeah. So I'd say probably L. But I mean, I like all the characters. You got Elle and Beth. You got the side characters of Ashford, who is Beth's fiance, Dennis, who's his companion. I feel like those four characters are, as much as Ashford and Dennis, you don't see their point of view. They're still kind of in that like main character perspective because their story kind of moves to be focused around those four in particular.
Yeah, and I noticed with like Dennis as well, I quite liked him. You've managed to portray a lot of inner turmoil in him, even though he's just a side character. You really kind of get to know
Mm,
him and what that's going on
hmm
inside him. So, do you have like a writing process? Are you sort of like a sit down and write for a whole day, or are you a little bit every now and then, or a planner, or a pantser, or how's it work
Oh
for you?
man, I feel like we discuss this between ourselves, don't we, Lily?
Mm.
Like that idea of like planning and stuff. I mean, for me personally, that how I write has shifted over the kind of the course of how long I've been writing. What year is it? Like 7 or 8 years since I started writing Awakening, my first book. And I was a student and I had all this free time and I was just like, yeah, let's write a book. Now, and again, you fully appreciate this being a parent, it's like you just have to fit around your child slash children.
Mhm.
Um, so it's been like an adaptive process, I would say. Like how that looks when I can write, because you'd think, oh, evenings are great because he's in bed, but for me, usually of an evening, my brain is done. I'm just
Not good.
like exactly, it's mashed potato. Like it's nothing's happening. I'll have the rare occasion where I'll be like, yeah, this is great, and like get out a little chunk of writing. Generally, though, it's when he's at preschool slash he's going to school soon, so that'll be when he's at school. Um, yeah, basically fitting around parenthood and being a counsellor as well, but my day job. Um, so yeah, I'm hoping when he goes to school there'll be more writing time opportunity. As far as planning goes, I used to just be able to just have a vague idea and just kind of start writing. That's how Awakening was born. It was like based on my D&D character at the time, and I was like, this is a vague idea of a story. Let's start writing. And a book came out, and then another book came out quite quickly afterwards. Now, if I tried to do that, and I have tried to do that with my current work in progress, as you know, because you've kind of been there as I've had like dilemmas with it. I had a couple of attempts at writing it, getting to about 20,000 words and thinking this is not right. So I just kept just kind of writing myself into a corner, or it just didn't feel like the right perspective. So I do find, I think you recommended actually just sitting down like writing, having going through like the timeline, for example, just having an idea, even if it's not completely everything that's going to be in the story, just having some idea of what's going to happen. And
Yeah.
that's definitely helped. Just because it really does clear it up in your head. I'm never going to be someone that fully like plans chapter by chapter because I feel like that takes a lot of the excitement out of them writing it. It's just becomes boring. You think, oh, okay, I haven't got the energy to actually write this now. But having a loose plan has definitely helped. Yeah, so that's where I'm at now. That may change again. Who knows? But for now, with a young child, it feels like having a loose plan so then I can just take the opportunities to write as and when the stars align. He's asleep. I've got enough brain power. Yeah.
Yeah, it worked out. Yeah, no, the loose plan definitely works for me. And then I feel like I've
hmm
got everything straight in my head, and then you can
Yeah.
kind of go from there. And like you said, it doesn't have to stick to that plan exactly. It can
Yeah.
change. You can add stuff, you can take stuff out. But yeah, I used to try and
hmm
write like you used to as well. And I definitely think my writing is better for planning a
Mm.
book than for just bumbling along and being like, oh yeah, I've got a really good idea, and now I have to change everything that I've just written.
Yeah. Yeah, it
And
does. It saves work in the long run, doesn't it? Having an idea of where you're going at least. Um, and yeah, I think it's probably part of the learning process, isn't it? Of like
Mhm,
how you improve as a writer, taking on board this advice. Um, I think also one of the things that has been good for both of us is the idea of just writing and not try not to worry too much about like editing as you go,
mhm.
because you have permission for the first draft to be a pile of crap, basically. Like it's
It usually is.
yeah, it's just your brain is just blah, just getting all that stuff out, and then you work out what it actually means later. Like I don't know about you, but I find that I'll be writing something and then I'll get like a random idea for something to go and change that's happened earlier on, or a scene for much later in the book. So my phone notes is just full of like all these different scenes and
Mhm.
chunks of dialogue that are going to fit in there somewhere. Our brains are weird, aren't they? They'll just
Okay.
sometimes you really want to write and they're like, nope. And
Mhm.
then you go away and do something completely different. I'll be like reading, driving, asleep. Sometimes
Oh
I'll
yeah.
just wake up in the middle of the night. Um, yeah, so our brains sometimes they don't operate how we want them to, but they're
Yeah.
still always churning away in the
Mhm.
background.
Oh yeah. And I always find it's the minute I get into bed and I'm drifting off to sleep, and then I've got the idea or the twist or whatever. It's like I can't sleep now till I write that down. So, and it's not often doesn't always come in one go. It's like a little bit, okay, go back to sleep. No, another bit, and like 4 or 5
Yeah.
times. What for goodness sake?
It's so annoying, isn't it? Because if you don't write that down, I've done it before. I've been like, I'll remember that. That's a great idea. More,
No, you won't.
it's gone. It's gone. It's just nothing. So you have to write it down. Yeah, it's frustrating at times, but I guess it's part of being a writer.
Yeah. I think as you switch off, isn't it? Your brain is a bit freer to sort of
Mm,
think, isn't it? Or like when you're washing up or driving or whatever, your
hmm.
brain is sort of not focused on thinking of story ideas, and that's when they seem to come.
Yeah,
Which
exactly.
is good. And you've got two other books. Do you want to tell us a little bit
Hmm.
about your fantasy series?
Yeah, so it's the Commune's Curse is the fantasy series. So books one and two are out now. So book one is Awakening, book two is The Madman's Hope, and book three will be written probably at some point next year. So yeah, that's kind of more of your stereotypical medieval style fantasy book, um, which I feel like was always probably going to be my first like foray into writing because I grew up reading those kinds of fantasy stories, and that's what inspired me to be a writer. Like stuff like now my brain's just blanking now of any story. Like the Sword of Shadow series by J.V. Jones. Just looking at my bookshelf. Um, and I mean, like The Hobbit, Lord of the Rings films were a big inspiration. There's stuff like that. So yeah, more of the like standard what you'd expect for a fantasy story to be. Yeah, the Commune's Curse is it's told in four perspectives. So we've got Evelyn, Rafe, Hector, and Jonah. And again, it's that kind of yeah, looking at that, I'm very internal when it comes to characters in terms of what's going on for them and their processes. And with that series in particular, um, it's kind of like they start off on different sides and characters change sides, and it's about an authoritarian kind of government style organization called the Commune who are controlling the country. And actually, that oppression and the exploration of it, and characters trying to challenge it or fight against it. That is a theme that seems to run through all my books. I wonder why. It's because so like Echoes of the EtherStone, that again is that religious oppression and the patriarchal oppression that's happening in that society. Again, it's about trying to deconstruct that. So that's as much as these two like the series and this standalone book are completely different in terms of setting and type of story, the themes are still very similar. And you'll find similarities in kind of the way that I write because it's all very character focused. I'm yeah, all about like what's going on for the characters, what's going on in their head, what are they thinking, what are they feeling. Um and I'm not someone that's like hugely detailed in the world building and describing all the scene and what everything looks like and everything like that. I'm just the characters are first and foremost in how I'm telling the story, basically.
I think the characters are, I mean, a bit of description is lovely, but the characters are the thing that drives the story.
Hmm.
And you can read books where there's so much description, you just skip it, and then
Yeah.
there's no point in having it. So, do you
Mm.
like plan your individual characters? Obviously, because you seem to know them quite in depth. Do you sort of plan them
Hmm.
out?
I feel like I get to know them as I write the stories. And I mean, holding in mind, like I said earlier, stuff like their attachment style, like what might they have experienced when they were growing up, and why are they how they are now. So, like I said earlier, with Elle in Echoes of the Etherstone, understanding her childhood experiences, the loss of her mum at an early age, her father's addiction to alcohol, and then subsequent abuse of her and her brother. Um, and the childhood trauma that's created and the impact that has. In the Community Care series, again, similarly, knowing what each character has been through as a child, I think that's probably where I don't start off knowing that. I think that develops again as I'm writing the story, and I'm like, oh yeah, so they've experienced this, and so that's why they are this way. That's why they don't trust people. That's why they um maybe why they're a villain, for example, because they've got backstories too.
Yeah.
Um, So, and sometimes, yeah, most they're the most interesting because I think with every character you want to basically understand what they're doing and why. And
Hmm.
even if it's a bad guy, so to speak, if they're doing something that's completely evil and horrible, but you can see why they've got to that point, and to them it doesn't seem bad. It seems like the logical next step. I thought that then makes it easier to connect with them on some level and to like them as a character, if you see what I mean. Even though they're complete bastards, like you still want to read on. You still want to know more about them. Um, so yeah, it's with that kind of having the planning thing, having that vague idea of who these people are. But as you write it, it becomes clearer for
Hmm.
me anyway.
Yeah. Because people aren't just bad, are they? Villains, like you're saying, they aren't
No.
just nasty. People generally
Hmm.
aren't just horrible. There's often a lot of other things that are going on, and
Hmm.
they have the depth of character.
Absolutely. Yeah, no one is born evil, basically.
No, no. So, are you working on anything else? I know we've got the Communist Curse series and then
Hmm.
Echoes of the Stone, but what else
Hmm.
are you working on? What's in the pipeline?
So I'm working on another gothic fantasy, which started off as being inspired by Phantom of the Opera because that's my favorite musical ever. I've seen it way too many times. Um, but it still has a loose connection to that. I mean, one of the main characters is called Christine, which is a character in Phantom, but um, it has moved away from that. And you'll know this again because you've read some of it and you know that I've shifted perspectives. I started off as Christine being the first main character with like flashbacks to Amelia, the other main character who's they're 50 years apart in time. I've kind of shifted now to how I'm writing it to be chronological. So I'm writing Amelia's perspective first and then Christine's. And so it's these two women who are separated by 50 years, but they their lives become entwined and you kind of discover why. And it's again, shockingly, a society governed by an authoritarian government. I can't get away from that theme. It's maybe one day I will, but for now, I just seem to be writing stories with that similar theme.
Yeah.
So, but Amelia, her timeline is set before that it was set up, and Christine's is after it's set up. So you kind of find out what happened in Amelia's timeline to lead to the organization of it's called the Guardianship, which controls this island. Yeah, so as I said, it started as Phantom of the Opera kind of inspired story, but it quickly moved away from that. So that's what I'm working on like right now. I've also got on the back burner Commune's Curse Book 3, which has like a few character chapters written and the full synopsis is all planned out. So I know where that's going and how that's going to end. And that'll be interesting because it'll be wrapping up a trilogy, which I've never done before. So that will probably, I'm sure, bring its challenges. Um, and I have another book on like the back burner right now, which is like a gladiator retelling, but female protagonist. Um, which yeah, I'm excited to get into, but it just didn't feel like the right time to write it. You know, when you get that feeling where you're just like, I'm like, I want to write this book, but it's not right now. I've written like 15,000 words of it maybe, and it's just waiting. So I'll get to that again, hopefully sometime next year. My plan is to try and finish the current draft of the Phantom inspired gothic fantasy by the end of this year, and then see where I'm at next year, basically.
Yeah, excellent. You just can't force the writing. If it's not the right moment to write the book, you just can't
Yeah,
do it, can you? Otherwise, it just doesn't work. So you write
yeah.
a lot of fantasy stuff. Are there any other
hmm
genres that you might fancy branching into, or do you think you'll always stick with the fantasy?
I mean, I enjoy like crime thrillers and horror, and yeah, I feel like there's overlap certainly in the horror. There can be overlap with fantasy, so that's
Mhm.
perhaps where I've gone down like the darker fantasy route. But yeah, crime thriller is completely different, as you know, because you're currently writing one, having stepped away from fantasy and sci-fi for a bit. And so that feels like that could be a good change of pace. I've read them for years, you know. I've read yours and they're fantastic. And it feels like it links in with that true crime kind of interest as well, doesn't it?
Mhm.
So that's yeah, a potential. But I feel like it's one of those things where you really need a clear idea of what the story is, you know.
Yeah.
So inspiration might strike because you never know, do you, as a writer, what is going to set off those like cogs in your head, what's going to plant the seed of an idea. So yeah, I'd be open to writing a crime thriller certainly because I enjoy reading them. So
Yeah.
you never know.
Yeah, and I've definitely found with the crime, it's that's what's needed more planning than like with the fantasy
Mm,
film. You can kind of change things and make things up to fit with the world that because you've created it. But yeah, with the
hmm
crime stuff, you definitely need to have that plan.
Yeah.
Maximum your disappointment, but yeah, you have to plan.
hmm
So Echoes of the EtherStone is being published by Al Talon Press. So do you want to tell us a little bit
hmm
about your publishing journey and how you found them?
Yeah. So, because it's my publishing journey generally has been quite up and down. Like Awakening, my debut book was picked up by a small press back in 2020 after querying like with agents and small presses, um, which was like at the time I was very, very excited about. It did not pan out well with that small press. So I ended up self-publishing the second book in that series, which then just, to be honest, opened my eyes to the legitimacy of self-publishing in terms of that as an option for my books. Like I'd always gone into it thinking I'm going to query this and that's just the path that I want to take. But actually self-publishing, you know, I've got a lot of friends that do it, yourself included. You know, we've met so many amazing self-published authors through Introverted Indies. Um, it's a learning curve. There's a lot to take on board and to do and to pay for, but
Mm-hmm.
it's also a legitimate path to get your book out into the world. So that'll
Yeah.
be how the Commune's Curse series is finished through self-publishing. With Echoes of the Etherstone, I always went into it thinking I want to query, I want to try and get an agent, and if that doesn't pan out, then self-publishing is always an option. So yeah, I did that. I queried it with agents and small presses again. And it was the first book that I got full requests from agents on, which felt like a milestone. But it's such a frustrating process doing querying. Um, as you know, Lydia, as all the authors that we've spoken to previously on different like panels and stuff know, it's like the waiting game. And I personally found it made me go a little bit nuts, like in terms of how much I was checking my email inbox, for example. And like, you have to consciously stop yourself from refreshing. I started using Query Tracker actually when I was doing Echoes of the Etherstone, and that kind of a blessing and a curse in terms of like it gives you more information and you can see agents' lists and how many
Mm-hmm.
queries they've got sitting in their inbox and where yours is. But then you see some agents going all over the place. They don't read through them in chronological order, so actually you don't know when yours is going to be read. It's like how long is a piece of string. and
Yeah.
I'm not a patient person. So waiting is very hard. It's another learning curve of being a writer who is choosing that path of querying. Learning to wait and be
Yeah.
patient is an absolute must, as is learning to accept rejection because it's
It's
absolutely
gonna
going to
come.
happen. Which I'm at the point now. I feel like when I first started out, it was really gutting getting any kind of rejection. Now it's like you get that initial sting of okay,
Mhm.
ooh, that sucks, but then you're like okay, on to the next. And so
Yeah.
yeah, I was at that point with EtherStone where it was out, had a full requests out with agents, and I saw Al Talon Press do um an open call for manuscripts on social media. I thought, why not? I'll send it to them, see what happens. Um, I honestly not expecting anything at that point, but yeah, they came back and offered to publish it, and I was like, okay, wow, okay.
Mhm.
Um, and actually, they picked up a book by my friend Easter Tony, who we know from the FSF Writers Alliance,
Yeah.
who we've interviewed for Introverted Indies. So yeah, they are a small press as well, based in America, and yeah, it's just basically now going forward, I'm just like, I'll see how it goes. I'll probably like query the next book that I do, and if I get another small press, great. If I get an agent, great. Otherwise, it's self-publishing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it feels like it's opened up the what's the word? Like the path, like if you know what I mean. Like there's no pressure around the querying stuff now because it's like if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, that's okay because we'll just self-publish.
Yeah, and the view of indie publishing has changed substantially, even
Mm,
in the last few years. I mean, when
yeah.
I first published my fantasy book, that was 2017. It
Hmm.
was, yeah, it wasn't really even like heard of so much. It was, I know it was a thing, but it wasn't really that heard of, and everyone was kind of looked down on
Mm,
if you self-published.
yeah.
Whereas now, so many amazing books are self-published that publishers are after those books. So,
Yeah.
it has changed. It's not the same as it was at all.
Hmm. No, absolutely. It's much easier to do now. I think there's a lot more options in terms of self-publishing, like platforms.
Yeah, yeah. And like you and I have both found that actually self-publishing is a better option than some small press publishers because they don't always live up to what you
No.
expect, or
Hmm.
they're as it's the same as self-publishing, but you just have less
Yeah.
control. So you might as well do it yourself for
Hmm.
better control of your work and all those
Yeah.
sorts of things. And entering
Hmm.
competitions or giveaways and things, you can't do that if someone else has got your book. So yeah, there's definitely a lot
Yeah.
of pros.
Hmm. Agreed.
Yeah, excellent. So, do you have other sort of hobbies and things you like to do when you're not reading, writing, creating worlds?
Yeah. So video games is a big one that I've been doing since I was a kid. And which again changed becoming a parent. It meant far less free time to do that. I mean, it's the balance is starting to come back a little bit now. Because he's older and so it's and he goes to bed like 6 o'clock at the moment.
Mhm.
So my husband and I get like a chunk of evening time. We're playing Diablo 4 at the moment. Yeah, so I've always played like again fantasy kind of video games, whether it be Legend of Zelda, as you can see from the poster behind me. Um, like Final Fantasy games, Witcher games, Red Dead Redemption, like so role playing slash fantasy is my jam.
Mhm.
Um, Other than that, what do I do other than that? What at a moment of like, who am I? Yeah, I like TV shows. So again, fantasy. I feel there's a theme here, right? Like fantasy. So um, I was gonna say Game of Thrones then, but then I remembered the last series. Uh, but that kind of thing, right? So, and also I would just say I enjoyed the Witcher TV show as much as people didn't. I'm waiting for the new series. I just watched The Rings of Power, which again quite enjoyed, despite the fact that a lot of people didn't. But yeah, again, it'll be fantasy or with TV, crime stuff, like police, detective dramas, that kind of thing. and films. Because I used to go to the cinema very regularly, like enjoy watching, like was so up to date with all the Marvel universe and stuff.
Yeah.
That again is very difficult to do now, being a parent without
Yeah.
like people close by that can take care of our son. But when I can, it's go to cinema, see the latest like superhero, or they've been re-releasing loads of my favorite films lately. So they re-released like The Mummy, all the Christopher Nolan Batman trilogy, Moulin Rouge, Lord of the Rings. So I'm like, if cinemas can just keep releasing films from when I was between the ages of 10 and 15. Oh, Gladiator was another one. That's all I need, right? Let's keep re-releasing those.
Brilliant. Yeah, no, I love the cinema, but yeah, like you said, it's trying to go when you've got children is either cost you a bomb or you have to try and get babysitters. So
Which also costs a bomb, yeah.
yeah. So can you tell us a little bit about where people can buy your books and how people can pre-order Echoes of Zone and
hmm
some of the little free
Oh
things that
yeah.
people will get?
Yeah, so I have a link tree which is linked in the bio of all my social media, which is so Instagram is probably the main one, Instagram and Threads. So at Lucy_A_McLaren on both of those. I'm also on Blue Sky. I am on TikTok, but I don't post that regularly on there because it is a mystery to me. But so if you go onto my link tree via any of my social media links, you can see all the pre-order stuff. The ARC sign up form is still available and will be until the October release. So if you fancy reading this early and leaving a review for it, get a free copy. And that's got all links so where you can buy it. So obviously the usual places of Amazon and stuff, but you can buy direct from the publisher. Basically, any pre-order will get a free character card if you wouldn't mind holding that up again, Lydia, because I forgot to bring one. So you get a free postcard for any pre-order. So if you contact me or our Talon Press on Instagram, and we will send you a free character art postcard. Yeah, so I think that's everything you asked.
Yes, yeah, no, that's great.
hmm
And you have a website as well. Would
I
you be able
do,
to
yeah.
just
Thanks for reminding me. Yeah, yeah. So that's Lucy A McLaren author.wordpress.com. And yeah, that's got I don't update it as much as I should, but you can sign up to my newsletter on there if you scroll down to the bottom of the page. And I send out kind of semi-regular newsletters, usually discussing anything ranging from like mental health theory and how you can apply that to your characters, what I've been reading, what I'm writing, what I'm playing if it's a video game, whatever, just that kind of stuff, like general updates.
excellent. And are you reading anything good at the moment as we're on the topic of what you're reading?
Ooh, I'm reading so many things. Too many books. Because like my to be read pile is so phenomenally large that I'm like, what if I read 5 books at once? Which doesn't actually work because then I read them all really slow. So I'm reading The Golden Fall by Robin Hobb, which is part of the Tawny Man trilogy. Children of Chaos by Trudy Skies. Those are both enormous fantasy books, which I've been reading for some months now because it takes me so long to read, usually especially physical books. Ebook wise, I'm reading an arc for K.M. Schumacher called A City of Smoke and Demons. And I'm reading, what else am I reading? That might be it. I've got a couple of beta reads, one for yourself, your one of your sci-fi books, right? And for another friend. Yeah, so too many books basically, but it's so dangerous, especially having an ebook reader,
Oh
because
yeah.
you can get books for like either free or like 99p, and you think, yeah, obviously I'm gonna buy that, and then and then I'm like, there's so many books that I want to read right now, and that keeps shifting.
Yeah.
There's not enough time in the day. You know what? I often think like I want like Bernard's watch. Do you remember that TV show where you
Oh, yeah.
have the
And
watch
you
so
go
you
back.
can pause time?
Yeah.
So you can just sit and read.
Yeah. And then yeah, do the housework, then go back and read for a bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, no, I need one of those. I find I buy things on the on Kindle or on the ebook, and then like months later, I'll see a book or something, and I'll go to like buy the physical book, and then be like, it says I've already bought it as an ebook. I'm like, I need to actually look through my library.
Yeah, I've done that before. Sometimes, yeah, open the library and like, oh, okay. Did not know I had that. Yeah.
Oh, excellent. So is there anything else you'd like to talk about your upcoming release, or anything else before we wrap up?
I don't think so. Just that, anyone that wants to check this out, if you fancy like gothic fantasy, murder mystery, like found family. I feel like someone who reviewed it said they were like thriller vibes. That might have even been your review. I can't remember. Someone reviewed it and said there were thriller vibes. So I feel like if you like true crime and are interested in that kind of thing, but also fantasy, it's a good book to check out, and it would mean a lot to me if you did.
Yeah, well, I can vouch for that. It is a good book. I really enjoyed it. So people should definitely buy
Thank
it. Okay, well, it has been so great to chat to you, and thank you for joining me on our channel. And
you.
yeah, there'll be lots of
Thanks, Lydia.
updates from us soon, I'm sure.
Farewell. Thank you.
Super.
See you again
All right,
soon.
then. Bye.